Thursday. Welcome to the Mattriarchy. I am, of course, as always and ever, your host, Matthew Reese. I am joined today by the esteemed Doug Tenaple.
Yeah.
And by the equally esteemed, if less known, Fly Fox Pro.
Let's not lie now.
He's better known to his family.
Less esteemed. Yeah, there you go.
I hold you in great esteem, Fly.
Oh, thank you.
So I don't have as many of your books on my shelf, but and so we are here today to talk to Doug about many books because I have first of all, because I do a talk show, so that's sort of what we do, right?
Right.
But secondly,
you talk on a show, show.
I do. That's the ticket. But also because I have recently ended up getting a bunch of Doug's books, and so I thought, hey, let's talk to the man himself. So thanks for coming on,
you
Doug.
should go. You have access to the source.
Yes, absolutely.
Why believe all the internet rumors?
That's hilarious.
Right?
Oh yeah. Oh, and the internet rumors are rich, of course. There's lots of rumors to be had. But I would like to start some rumors of my own tonight. But before we get into that, how you been?
I've been great. Pretty just mellow mood, in between books. I don't want to, I'm like, I don't want to think or say anything when I'm between books. I go into like hardcore workaholic mode when I'm drawing, and then I go into like hardcore withdrawal mode. Like I don't do hardly, because it's all like lettering then, and on the phone with the printer and scanning stuff and all that. It's the kind of stuff that I couldn't do during a show.
Yeah, it's really boring to watch.
Yeah, it's very, very the least romantic part of my job.
It's the most important part of your job, because that's the thing. Like a lot of people can sit down there and they can draw their little static images and they can put down some words on a piece of paper, but doing the production work behind the scenes, pushing hard to get something out, that's the most difficult part of all.
Yeah, it's bad. Yeah. And I have a lot of help too. I have my assistant, Mr. Phillips, just does a ton of the heavy lifting for me. I've got a colorist, Catherine Garner out in the UK, who's coloring the whole time. Like if I had to color this book, I don't think I could ever finish anything. There it is, Ghostopolis. Yeah, you got Ghostopolis and Creature Tech back there. Look, those are all my Doug books back there, Catherine.
Yeah, I got to appreciate some new Catherine art this week because I finally got a hold of gear and just look at those rich colors. Gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. So thank you, Catherine, out there in the world.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Nicholas Mueller's in the chat. Thanks for tuning in, Nick. Appreciate that. His book, Demon Hunter Raven, just finished their campaign. I'm looking very forward to that. Oh, yeah. Looks very nice stuff. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, so the reason I like I said, Fly Fox is here, and we're going to tag team interview you. We don't have a plan for it though, so we'll see how that works out.
Oh, it always works out better that way.
But Fly just reviewed. It was funny because we were talking behind the scenes about stuff, and we both ended up picking up Black Cherry at about the same time.
Yeah, what you think of that?
Oh man, I loved it. It's obscene, but it's amazing.
Yeah.
I actually have had it for a while, but I did review it fairly recently around the same time as you got it. So
that one was way out there, man. And in a way, making it so foul allowed me to really do anything I wanted, kind of unleash. I have a couple of those kind of unleashy type books. That's one of them. The other one is probably the closest thing to it that's unleashed is Rat Fist. And a little bit of Creature Tech, because Creature Tech and Gear, those two early ones, I was doing those books back before I thought anyone was even reading them.
Yeah.
So suddenly there was no audience. I didn't care, and so it brings out this kind of craziness to the writing when I'm less responsible.
So
and then Black Cherry was another one where I was just so burned out of doing all these real responsible stories, and I always love film noir and pulp fiction and all that. So I go, I'm going to do something set in that land, and so I was able to be unleashed. And then Rat Fist is another one where I said I think I was going crazy. I said, screw everything. This is what I'm.
Ratfist is one I haven't read yet, but anyway, Fly, you were saying?
So now that you're doing, your own, you're publishing it yourself, you're doing this independent publishing, do you feel you're closer to that mentality of freedom, or do you feel like you've put restraint? Obviously with Earthworm Jim, there's restraints, but with Bigfoot Bill and some of there was other projects, whatever you do going forward, do you feel like you're putting restraints on yourself, or are you allowing yourself?
I definitely am on both books. Yeah. There's a lot of restraints. They're not just like go crazy. Mm-hmm, and I'm feeling the need to do one of those books, by the way.
Right.
Go crazy. So certainly book 3 of both Earthworm Jim and Bigfoot Bill will be go crazy books.
Well, and Bigfoot Bill, well, I want to come around to that. I don't want to get ahead of myself because I want to spend a little bit of time talking about Black Cherry because I really, really liked it. And especially the beginning, before the alien shows up.
Yeah.
It really felt, it had a lot of the same texture as Kyle Baker's Are You Here? That real gritty 70s crime movie. Like,
he's a huge inspiration to me. Kyle Baker's You Are Here, and the other one that he did, I Die at Midnight.
Okay, I haven't read that one yet, but
it's a great book. Those 2 books, but especially You Are Here, you'll see a lot of that in those drawings in Creature Tech too, because I got that book and I drew every hand in the book. I redrew every hand in the book in a sketchbook just to learn how Kyle Baker did hands, because I loved his expression. He came from animation. He worked on, I think, Ren and Stimpy or something. He had an animation background, so I really needed to learn. He was in that place where I wanted to draw. Right, I knew I could never pull off a Mike Mignola without looking exactly like him. But Kyle Baker was much more in the tradition of all of the Mad Magazine guys who were they were cartoony, but not doing full on Warner Brothers. Jeff Smith is in that same category.
Right.
Carl Barks, the classic Disney stuff. They're all kind of, I would even say Todd McFarlane sometimes goes into that area too. Because everyone was complaining when he was doing Spider-Man, like how big and cartoony his eyes were. Right. And I just think there's kind of a little more of a cartoonist in their expression and their drawing that I really try and use to keep my stuff alive. So, but the crime noir stuff, the You Are Here story is absolutely amazing. Like it is great writing, great drawing.
And the thing that really stunned me about You Are Here, other than there was some shocking stuff in it.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here reading this comic, when we homeschooled our kids, right? So the specific time I was reading it, one of the times we were driving our kids out to a homeschool activity. And so the kids are in the car and they're bouncing around and I'm flipping through it and I open it up and it's, it's a nudie bar. And I'm just like,
yeah. It's not for the kiddos.
How far in the back seat are the children? Right.
Yeah. And Kyle Baker's art is amazing.
But other than that, the end, he nails the unexpected ending. Yeah. And it's just it's like that perfect, is
that the one with the bad guy that looks like what's his face from the original Cape Fear? He's a classic noir guy because he nails lookalikes really well. I think
Robert
that's the
Mitchum?
main villain in that one is the guy.
Oh yeah. I think so.
I forgot his name.
Robert Mitchum.
Robert Mitchum. Yeah, he made the bad guy look just like Robert. Is that the one, or am I thinking of I Die at Midnight?
Oh man, it's been so many years since I read that.
Does he break the guy's neck at the end on the boat?
Yes.
Is that the one? Okay, then or it might be Kirk Douglas. It's one of those two. Because remember how John Kay used to always draw Kirk Douglas's face? It would just go like on the screen. Kirk Douglas, every time he'd show Hollywood, they love drawing those kind of classic chiseled looking faces.
Yeah. But anyway, the thing I loved about it, one of the things I loved about Are You Here is it has an ending it's like a Postman Rings Twice where you think it's going to go one way and it doesn't go the way you expect it to, but it still fits. It still fits perfect.
Yeah. It wraps up tight and has a little twist in there. And I really enjoyed it. It's
great. But anyway,
really fun, great character, work. And he did something weird on the layout of that. I remember because he did everything with horizontal panels, side by side, and he didn't put word balloons in it. He put all the dialogue down below. in text. And I hadn't seen that before in a comic. I thought that was really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they also, some of the times there weren't balloons per se, but there would be like text blanks.
Yeah.
That would trail off of it.
Yeah.
So that you'd actually use the gutter to frame your dialogue.
Right.
So it makes it look more art housey than comic booky.
Well, it allowed him also to kind of focus on, it's like storyboarding a movie, really. So it allowed him to focus on kind of the horizontal panels and just draw, boom, 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 boom. It wasn't about composing the page. It was about composing the shot. And it really gave it a real cinematic feel.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Great.
Scott Morse does that in some of his books too, who did he's the Cow and Chicken storyboard artist. He works at Pixar now. He did, what was the two detectives in Spawn had a spin-off book?
Oh, Sam and Twitch?
Yeah, Sam and Twitch. So he did Sam and Twitch that way.
Okay.
With horizontal panels that told, different stories simultaneously. But he did them all the same horizontal panels.
Very cool. I'll have to seek that out. So
yeah, I think it's on Image.
Yeah.
Image did it.
Fly, you were going to say something?
I was going to say, something I've been thinking about lately is that a lot of people, they constrain themselves to this panel idea. Like they have to have panel borders and all of this stuff. And they only break it when they do break it, it never seems like it's for a reason. But one of the things that I found interesting is if you look at Will Eisner's later career, he got away from that. He got away from dialogue balloons, and he got away from those panel borders and things, and he was just putting the images, and it's still, nobody really does it that way, but that's the way he went as he got older.
Yeah. Watterson went really out of his way in Calvin and Hobbes to try to defy the syndicate about panels. And if you look at the collections, it's really interesting to just kind of study where he played nice and where he was just it's genius. Leave me alone.
Yeah. By the end of his career, by the time he did the renegotiation of the rights, one of the things was they had to do the entire Sunday strip. And so he was able to just do a whole whatever he wanted. Yeah. And that's because he was just a big fan of the Crazy Cat and Ignatz Mouse that would take up the entire Sunday page of a comic section. Those are huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, panels they're there to be broken. You don't have to be rigid unless that is part of your storytelling. I never want my panels to distract. I never want to break a panel just for the sake of it or anything. But you'll see in a lot of my action stuff in Earthworm Jim and Bigfoot Bill, I always remove all the panels and just have the characters go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 in an action thing.
And I think especially in that one sequence in Bigfoot Bill, maybe I'll even look for it here while I'm talking about it. That action makes it so fluid. Is that where
it just feels more like the constraints of it feels more. Oh yeah, there's one too. I love doing multiple. That might be some of Chris Ware's influence on me too. The Acme Comedy Library, whatever it is that he did.
This is another one.
Acme Novelty Company. Yeah, there's an action one.
Is where it's panels. Yep, no panels, but it leads you through the art in the same way that panel structure does.
Because to me, that's what a fist fight would feel. It feels more like an action thing. It slows the reader down. So instead of just looking, if you just went panel, you could just go zip, 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 big deal. I blew through it. Those you have to study a little more to see. There's stuff to find, in them.
Right.
And one of the things too about that too is it gives you the chance, and I've seen people do that with panel structures too, but it's tough. Some of the kung fu books from the 70s had that, but where the punches and the kicks actually lead you through the page. And and I can't remember the artist who he worked with a lot on that, but Mike Barron's Badger stuff has a lot of that too, where the actual fighting guides the page so it feels like you're in the middle of it.
Yeah, I've got a lot of manga stuff that does that too. So a lot of comic artists are doing it. That's what Todd McFarlane was known for doing with Venom too, he was really breaking the panel and designing the page using panels. Mike Mignola, it's one of my favorite things he does too. He knows how to design with those rectangles or little tiny squares that only exist. It's for the design of the page to make it look and feel a certain way. Because when I get lazy, it's just like, break the page up into thirds one way and thirds the other way. It's either a wide at the top or two squares. And that just gets kind of formulaic after a while. So I don't mind if it carries the main part of the story that way, but I'm always looking for ways to break it when it's time.
I think it's important to be able to have that flexibility too, because it keeps the reader engaged in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So. And it's time to experiment. I mean, you can have fun. So do what you want to do. No one has to do anything,
So back to Black Cherry. I've got a visual cue to remind me.
There it is. Black Cherry.
Yeah. So how long ago was it that you put that together? I'm trying to remember.
I think that was 2008.
So it's been what? So then
12 years.
12 years. Yeah. Has that been, how do you feel like that's aged as far as
it ages well. It's still, when I go to Comic-Con, that was one of the top books of my fans. So I just think my other stuff, I tend to think more family and kind of Hollywood blockbuster-y, because I was always selling the movie rights and stuff like that. But I think Black Cherry probably reads more in the common tradition of comics. It's a little more violent and crass, and just, it's cinematic in a different way that I think it's probably closer to the culture of comics than most of my other works.
It feels very like a lot of the like lower tier, I don't mean in terms of quality, but in terms of like circulation numbers, like Monster Comics and like a lot of the EC stuff, the stuff that like didn't get snatched up by the big companies after.
Yeah, it's supposed to feel body and like an EC Comics kind of thing. It's very deliberate. Film noir. I think I was looking at a lot of like Alex Toth at the time.
Okay, yeah.
And a lot of Bernie Wrights and stuff for creepy and eerie. They both did creepy and eerie stuff. That it was supposed to kind of look and feel that way without just slotting in, because obviously it's very much a me story. It's got an alien in it. It's got a demon-possessed squirrel in it. It's got faith, a huge faith message, probably one of my most explicit faith messages. I felt like I could be real explicit with the faith because the skin was so rank that I felt free, like I can do whatever I want.
That actually brings up two questions with it. I guess one's probably observation. It is one of the most Catholic books that I've read. And of course, I mean, like in the last 2 years, Doug Ernst Soulfinder is hugely Catholic.
Yeah.
But Black Cherry is as Catholic, but also like obscene. So
yeah,
it's a very different aspect on it too, because in the one case you've got a Father Redder's character, somebody who's clinging to his faith and finding authority in that, and understanding, kind of like taking it to the next level. Whereas and forgive me from forgetting the main character in here, but he's a character who is having to rediscover,
Eddie Peretti.
Eddie, that's right. He's not doubting that things are true. He didn't doubt that things are true. He just stopped living it.
Yeah, he went and worked for the crime. He worked in the mafia.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's a fixer security guy for the mafia.
Yeah, so he has to kind of rediscover that from a tangible sense, and I think that's not from an intelligence sense, and that's one thing I thought was really interesting. Not intelligence, but something versus something you do.
I made that book. When I started it, I said it was for lapsed Catholics. Is who I made it for. And I'm not a Catholic. But I felt like, number one, if you're going to do a mafia story, right, and you're going to talk about religion that involves demon possession and exorcism, I don't see how that would work with any other religion, right? And there's a huge tradition of that stuff within mafia movies because of Scorsese, right? And Coppola. These are Italian guys. They're Catholic. All of their Italian characters are Catholic. Even if they don't say it, they do things that Catholics would do. Or they have an old lady in the corner with a rosary. So I just felt like if I was going to express faith in that book, it would have to be a Catholic faith. In fact, so much of the book is dealing with like rites and monks and stuff like that. And all my research that I did with that stuff, it just didn't feel right making the lead character like a Pentecostal or an evangelical or something. It just wouldn't work. It didn't. I was looking for cultural depth, and
right. And I don't think, and I have to agree, that was actually one of the things I was going to say before you got to that, but I don't think it would have fit at all if you tried to say make it Protestant or
it would be totally unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And especially when you're talking about film noir, that is all. It may not, even the films may not be by Catholics. Many of them were by Jews, but man, they knew Catholicism. They knew who Father whatever was, the character was.
And I think I was thinking back. This is something like I think back,
and it deals with orphanages, like kind of common vocabulary of Catholic stuff. He was raised in an orphanage or whatever.
Right. Well, I mean, you have the Hays Code being such a huge deal in early Hollywood when like film noir started making money, and then all of a sudden they had to like rein things in, but their audience wanted this color palette. They wanted these subject materials. Yeah. So I think that there's this marriage between Catholicism and film that had to fit in really, really well to kind of sell the kind of movies that could sell, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I loved one of the other things I really loved about Black Cherry too is that, you have the alien who's like studying Catholicism and all of that kind of stuff. And one of the huge questions is, how does this fit? Like, how do I, these are things I believe to be true, but can I really have a part in all of that? And I thought that was a really great question. And I loved that it was left hanging, right? A large.
Yeah. And that car wreck kind of iconoclastic ideas just kind of being car wrecked together. I get that definitely from Quentin Tarantino, where he'll have Pulp Fiction. So there's a guy, eating fruit brewed or talking about some real esoteric. In fact, the case, when they open it up, it's the code 666. They open it up. It's like, is that what I think it is? That very well could have been like an alien head or who knows what, We don't know what it is, but he was, there's something almost like haunted house-like about film noir movies. There's something going on in Casablanca and The Black Falcon, and there's something spooky and weird. Oh, and also the movie The Innocents I love, which is kind of a film noir horror story, one of the greatest black and white movies ever made. So I love that palette. Oh, Sunset Boulevard's another one, right? Creepy. Why does what's her face have a dead monkey in her house? It is weird and very creepy, funny, weird. So not in a normal way that you'd expect in a movie where you feel like all the rules are in place. When the male goes into that world of Norma Desmond or whatever in Sunset Boulevard, it's like he walked into a living hell. There's something very weird in there. And so the alien was totally appropriate. You have to be careful how many of those things you're going to put in, but the alien really is, outside of the demons and what they do to you. And that was another premise that I started with on that whole story was, number one, why does everyone always insist that when an alien is discovered that he's automatically going to be an atheist? And I go, well, this one crashed and became a Catholic. His desire is to be a monk. So that was one way that I was twisting it, is all these characters are looking for faith in different ways. And in his sense, he's afraid that because he's an alien, that salvation doesn't apply to him. And he wishes, so this is another thing, is that all your allies have to be on the same topic as your hero. He presents a contrast to Eddie Peretti, who had the faith and left it and now is wondering about it. And you have this other character who is not allowed to be in the faith, but is dying to get in.
It begs the question of, what does redemption mean?
Yeah.
And that's something I think that we don't think about enough. and I don't know if it's because in postmodern America we don't like to acknowledge that we're horrible, rotten, filthy people, or what it is. But like what redemption isn't something that we talk about a lot. So I think that question being so upfront with it is something that I just really loved on that.
And Black Cherry is probably very much my most anti-postmodernism book that I've done. It is. Yeah. It's by design made to be an assault on postmodernism. It basically takes everything postmodernism demands and just sticks a stick in its eye.
Well, I mean, I think even when you talk about the romance relationship that's in there, you don't get really complex and deep into it too. These people had these two people had a moment years ago, and they're both been dancing around what that meant for the whole thing.
Yeah.
But the fact that like Eddie at the end, walks away till he is a worthy person, right? Yeah. Like that whole idea.
He loves her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe for the first time. And she's like just a big boob stripper, right? And a junkie. So that's the kind of heroine you would have in a story like that. Mm-hmm. They're very broken people. Yeah. I love those characters. I love them as people.
So, sorry, everybody in the audience. Slight spoiler, not the ending you're going to expect. So,
yeah.
Should have said that before talking about
spoilers are overrated. I think one of the things about a good story is that it will still be good even if you know how it ends. Mm. So imagine like we can think of things that do this deliberately, where they show you the ending, the ending, and then it's like, how do I get to that point? How do we get there? Well, and that's often some of the best stories is like where the character ends up, but you're like, wait a second. How did he get into that misery when he started out so at the top of the world, or how did he get to the top of the world when he started out in misery? And that's the meat of the story. That's what's important. It's not really important what happens at the end.
Yeah. And because I got to do whatever I wanted in my own madness, I think Black Cherry is probably one of my strongest, most original stories I've done. It lives very much in a Tarantino or Coen brothers. I studied a lot of the Coen brothers, Miller's Crossing for that book, for that story too, and a lot of film noir, where film noir has its own language, so all the characters talk so deep in that their whatever stupid language their little group is using, mafia language or gangbangers in LA, and just I don't feel like I'm speaking my language, so I believe the characters would say those things.
Yeah, from the chat that says no good story can be spoiled. Otherwise, you'd never rewatch a movie or reread a book.
Yeah,
right.
And I think that's true. I think I do love the idea of a solid, really good twist that you don't see coming, like the end of Usual Suspects. First time went in blind because I just looked like a good crime movie, and then the end of it just blows the front of your skull out.
Yeah.
But man, watching the puzzle, the pieces drop the second time through was even more fun.
Yeah. And it's, if you're relying too much on that hook at the end, which I always feel like M. Night Shyamalan, is leaning so hard on that hook that you want to make sure that you still have a good movie to watch second time. So like you are going to watch Sixth Sense again and enjoy it.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to enjoy The Village as much the second time, because it's a little too reliant on the big hook. Mm-hmm. So you can give away the ending of my books, of my stories, and I think they're still great to read because I invest so much in the story along the way. I'm not just leaning on this big giant twist ending, so much.
So moving on from Black Cherry. Oh, actually, one other thing I want to point out. I don't know if you know The Metal. He is out there doing web comics and whatnot, and he was on our hangout with our comic company on Tuesday, and he told me that the fact that you are so prolific and so tall means you must in fact be a wizard. And
sure.
So, I'm not sure exactly how that works, but sure.
I don't know if it's illegal to claim wizardry, but I'll take it.
But anyway, okay. So the next book I wanted to go ahead and talk about, the other one over here, is Flink.
And they all fall down.
They did. But Flink, for those, I did not realize. I was looking for something to fill out an order on Amazon to get the free shipping, because that's what I do.
Yeah.
And I saw you have another Bigfoot book.
Yeah.
And I said, Doug did a different Bigfoot book? And
I'm a Bigfoot guy going all the way back.
I was instantly intrigued.
Have you read Iron West yet?
I haven't.
Yeah, there's a Bigfoot in that one too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So my question was, of course, Flink is it's a very different story, obviously, than Black Cherry. It's about a young kid, survival story out in the middle of the woods, and the whole thing. But one of my questions on it is there seems to be a connection between the lore of the Bigfoots in Flink and the lore of the Bigfoots in Bigfoot Bill.
Yeah.
And I was reading this and thinking about how much Turlock shows up in your stuff, and I'm like, is there a Dougverse beneath all this stuff?
Yeah, all of it obeys the same rules. All of my books, no matter what universe they're in, they're showing. They may never cross paths, but definitely they have the exact same magic, the Bigfoots in Flink and Bigfoot Bill. They can talk, which you never see in Bigfoot lore. My Bigfoots are, because they're ensouled beings, they can speak perfect English. So that's all they're very close to Native Americans, like close to nature. It's kind of how I see them, because they would be the kind of beings that all the Native Americans, who came up with Sasquatch, Indian name, they would come up with those names because they would not be threatened by Native Americans. They would definitely be threatened by normal people. So they have just this really rigid code of not being seen by humans, by non-Indian humans. And they're tight with their family. You'll see that they're very family oriented. And that's part of my explanation for why they're so hidden, is that they're very, very private and not, they don't go outside and explore just for the hell of it. The only time they ever get dragged outside is if they're looking for their family, which is what happened with Flink and Bigfoot Bill.
Mm-hmm. And that's actually one of the really interesting aspects from Bigfoot Bill too, is that it's revealed that, or it's mentioned anyway, that Bill was in danger, right? Yeah. So he had to be saved, and the whole thing. But then to look at how close the bonds are, and how in Flink you've got the, how where Flink is threatened with being kicked out of his tribe forever for being kind to a human, and with all of that, I thought it was just sort of like, is there more to the story than even we've seen with Bill's father and Bigfoot Bill 2, and how that's going to play into?
Oh yeah, no, yeah. You ain't seen nothing yet. This has all just been set up for the real story that's coming. You'll see on Earthworm Jim 2, which is available on Indiegogo right now, where you'll be given the first 24 pages of Bigfoot Bill 3. Ooh. Comes with that book. So it's full of, that first 24 pages is so full of spoilers and reveals of this is the real story that is finally starting in book 3. And it's a mess. Like, I don't even know how to draw it. It's so, outside of my talent set, but you'll learn a lot about Judgy. You'll learn a lot about Bigfoot Bill. You'll learn everything you know about the fairy lady, the fairy queen. It really pretty much unpacks, the third book should pretty much unpack a lot of the nature of the cryptozone, which I've already given brief glimpses, little hints of it in these first 2 books. And the third book, the big reveal is going to be, of course, at the 5th book, but it's a cool story.
So how many volumes are we expecting Bigfoot Bill to get to?
I don't know. I'm always aiming for 5. If I could wrap it in 3, I would. If I could wrap it in 4, I would, but it's probably going to take 5. So and I'm on my 3rd book now. So we'll see where the 3rd lands. My problem is I was always trying to do 2 books a year, Earthworm Jim and Bigfoot Bill. And I'm having a tough time keeping up with that. I'm so burnt right now that I just need a break of some kind. So after I finish Bigfoot Bill 3, I'll be halfway through my 10-book commitment of both Earthworm Jim and Bigfoot Bill being 5 books each. So I'm always aiming for 3 to 5. So, and there's more stories to tell in each of those worlds, but just, I want to be able to tell the one big giant saga of each of these characters, then take a break and do a whole lot of other stuff. Is what I need to do.
No, not to jump things too much, but I do I'm curious with Earthworm Jim. You're tying in. I have to confess, and I think I've told you this before. I haven't really played the games much.
That's okay.
I know enough about them that I'm picking up bits and pieces from like levels and stuff I've seen that are in the books. And I think I heard you say one time that you're explaining the level play through the story of Earthworm Jim. So how many games worth? I mean, is it going to be just the 1 and 2 that you worked on, or do you have more stuff?
It'll just be 1 and 2 that I worked on, and I won't cover all of them. I'm just hitting kind of the major, most famous levels I want to make sure that I address at some point in the stories, just so next time you play it, you'll have more of the story, to see. And it's not sequential or anything. I'm not matching the sequence of the games. I'm just like, everyone who played the game talked about the down the tubes level, the underwater level, which is why I did the second book. The second book, Fight the Fish, in that world, is because it is the one level that everyone complained about the most. So I made sure that I captured that in the book somewhere. And it ended up being so much material that there's only one other level mentioned in the whole book, which is the flying salamander level from Earthworm Jim 2. So it's like, and the next book, I already know for sure one level that's going to be there, what the next level is going to be. So,
which also brings up a side note, not to derail much further, but the cats in that I've seen in the previews that I got with Bigfoot Bill 2 and in the other stuff seem very, of course, your design looks very consistent with the cats in gear.
Yeah.
Is that just because that's how you draw cats, or is there other stuff behind there too?
That's how I draw cats.
Just how you draw cats. Okay.
So when I did them for Earthworm Jim, and there's no explanation for why they look that way in this book, Earthworm Jim 2, it exhaustively explains everything on why they're there and what they're doing that you saw. In fact, everything in that level is explained in the book. So yeah, it's just the way I draw them. I draw them with real pointy ears, and I have a lot of influences on that stuff too.
Yeah. Very cool. So for to just kind of pitch a little bit about what the story of Flink is, a kid survives a plane crash in the Pacific Northwest and is rescued by a Bigfoot.
That's right.
Go buy it. Do you guys? I got it off Amazon. Do you have any available at the Doug T shop?
I don't think so. You can always check the Shopify store, the Doug TeNapel library. Sometimes we get copies of it, but I think it's largely out of print. Mm-hmm. And that one, I don't know where the movie's at now, but it had a movie deal for a while. It might have lapsed now, but Andy Serkis was going to play Bigfoot, the Flink.
Really?
His company had I was dealing with one of the directors. He was a director on Doctor Who, and he's an English director, friend of mine. We've been developing that story since 2011. We've been doing that story. So I actually expanded the middle of it quite a bit, and they offered me the script, but it hit just probably right when I was in the middle of working on Bigfoot Bill. So I really just said, I'm not going to, and it wasn't going to pay. So I said, I'm not going to do it.
Well, that makes a spec
script.
So yeah, it was I really did enjoy Flink. There was something else I was going to say about it just now, and I can't remember.
There's the bear.
No, the bear was awesome.
Monster bear.
That monster rabid bear was insane. But I got
a bear with rabies is the bad guy.
Well, and you know, and you know, human frailty that's in there is a bad guy too.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I'm starting to see a theme, Doug.
Sure. Sure.
So
it's all the same story. They're all the same story. Everything I do.
There really kind of is just one story, right?
The giant Western myth. We're all doing the giant Western myth.
Well, I mean, even beyond that, right? Like every story they talk about, you know, man versus this, man versus, you know, nature, man versus man versus society. But the common feature in all of that is man. And I don't think we're as different from each other as we think we are. As fiercely devoted as I am to the idea of independence, once you know one of us, you can kind of get a good template for the rest of us.
And another thing I was really influenced by on Flink was one of the biggest influences in my life for storytelling is the Black Stallion.
Mm. Oh, yeah.
So if you look at that story, a boy crash lands on an island, is rescued basically by a horse. And you spend the whole first half of the story with them kind of in silence, just living together. And that was the feeling I wanted with Flink. Of course, I ended up having to put dialogue in it, because if you just go through half of a book with no dialogue, which is what it should be, if I was going to do a movie, that's what it would be, is just these two living together, and not bothering to waste words, you know, because they get a little chatty. But that was a big influence on me.
Yeah.
That great myth. It was also a huge influence on Tommysaurus Rex too.
Mm-hmm.
So Black Stallion reigns supreme in my mind as probably the greatest story ever told on film.
I don't know that I've ever heard anybody have that opinion.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite all time. It's up there.
I'll have to think about that.
Yeah, it's real. So, it really is a magic. It is a magic story, man. That thing is nuts.
So from the chat, Matt Krotz says, I once played Neverhood, but I never got ending to the never-ending hallway. But I got to the never-ending hallway and couldn't stop laughing at the trollish level design.
Yeah.
So
that was definitely me being a terrible troll.
I have not had a chance to play Neverhood.
At one point in the game, there's a giant wall of records that if you click on it, you know, you can go in close and you can scroll through and read it. But it's something like, I think I wrote about 190,000 words of lore. So there's people that have read the entire wall of records out loud. But if you just click to the right and skip past it and keep clicking to the right of it, it takes you 15 minutes to get to the end of the wall. And then you pick up one puzzle piece that you have to get to finish the game. And then you have to turn around and walk back the other way 15 minutes. It's absolutely terrible. The meanest game. And like people just played it and they would just curse, like, who designed this? What terrible. So Matt's right. It was semi-trollish. It's bad. It's bad.
Sorry, that lost me. It's the most insane thing he's ever seen in a game.
Yeah.
It would have to be. I can't imagine anything in a game being more insane than
it has the deepest lore I've ever written background-wise for a world. It's like my Silmarillion. I mean, you read that thing and it just goes into genealogies and histories.
Oh, wow.
And
yeah, my exposure to the Neverhood universe was through Skull Monkeys. So I knew there was a lot of that background stuff because it's all like hidden.
Yeah, all of that stuff in Skull Monkeys is talked about in that wall of records.
Yeah. Okay. So cool. Yeah, I've wanted to play it for years, but it's hard to find.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough.
At least legitimately, I hear you can get it like pirated, but
yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah. But so
it's beyond my technology, of course, so I can't figure it out.
Yeah. So, some big jerk says that's a great level. I lolled. So there you have it. got props from the chat on
people, my neighborhood people.
15-minute of clicking right.
Yeah.
So could you do that on a keyboard where you just hit the arrow button a bunch of times, or
I think you had to have a mouse, but it had a little arrow, and I think you click right with the arrow. You just go click, and it goes click, and you go refresh, and you walk across the screen. And at the end of the screen, you go click.
Oh man! So you can't even skip past that. That's just
no,
it's crazy.
So
terrible. Gear. I just finished that like today, right?
What'd you think of that?
Oh man, I really liked it, and it has.
That's my first graphic novel, like long form, big story I ever did.
The ending felt a little abrupt. I'll be completely honest on it. I mean, I think it makes sense because there isn't a whole lot to say in the denouement because virtually everyone dies.
That's the rule on story is when you finish the story, it's time to end it. So I just kind of took it literally and like in one page, burnt.
Well, and it was like one of those things where like in Lord of the Rings, right? The denouement is a whole separate story. The raising of the Shire, like, comes after the thing.
Yeah.
But it's because, like, you know, there's so many moving players on the board that you kind of have to. There's multiple stories to wrap up. So when you get to the Return of the King and the King's returned, well, things back home still need dealt with, right? So it's a whole different kind of a feel to it.
And it really is just about that one last cat's kind of thoughts about life.
Yeah.
You know, looking back.
Well, and then of course, what is the purpose of the machine, right? At the end of it all, with it, when you look at Waffles passing and all that kind of stuff, and that was I tell you what, man, when the whole Guardian erupted, man, I was like really taken aback. I like had to go back through the book to see if I'd missed something because I was totally like, how is this even happening?
Yeah, it's really brutal and mean. It's a brutal, it's a brutal story, you know.
It is. It really is, but it still has all of like the sensibilities of something that that a kid would really enjoy, right? It doesn't. It has these heavy themes, but it's not. But it's still written at a level where, like, a 10 or 12-year-old kid's gonna, even 9-year-old's gonna read it and be really into the thing, while it's dealing with like war and politics and sacrifice and what is a life worth when in reflection of society and all that kind of stuff.
It's a book I can't believe it lasted this long. Like, it still has a huge fandom, and I just always thought it was I just kind of blew it out, and it ended up being like a huge fan favorite. For some reason, that one just really hits people. I think it's so raw. It's just so raw that I think it hits them. Just and it does stuff. I'm doing stuff in that story that I haven't done on any other story since. There's a brutality to it, and I was very influenced. That was another one I was really influenced by. The Dark Knight and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I was just trying to do like a Ren and Stimpy in a Frank Miller world. I was reading a lot of, I don't remember if I was reading his film noir book yet or not. What was that one called?
Sin City?
Yes. I don't know if Sin City, I think it was. Yeah. I was reading Sin City, and I was reading, what was another brutal one? 100 Bullets. I was reading.
Yeah, Brian Azzarello, right?
Yep. And so the kind of crime noir, a lot of the Will Eisner stuff, Contract with God and Dropsy Avenue and stuff. So it was just more brutal stuff. And that was the book that I made before I had children. So it was just I was in a different mindset. So from Creature Tech on, I had kids either come on the way or, in the house. So it just really changed. That will just change your worldview,
One of the things I want to also point out, I think it took me by surprise. I had to go back and look at it, and I just loved it so much, was the secondary story in the top margin in chapter,
which you saw in Bigfoot Bill 2. I did that again. That's my Sergio Aragonés tribute. That's the only other book I did it in, was in Gear.
One of those things where all of a sudden I was like, wait, there's a second parallel story here, and I'm stepping into the middle of it. Let's go back and
that's a major plot point too in that book. That thing is like.
So are these tributes? Are those to thank him for winning you your Eisner?
No, because that one is the one that I won the Eisner. No, that wasn't the one I won the Eisner for.
You got a household. Wasn't
the
it
Treehouse of Horror? I did
right?
after that book.
Oh, okay.
So that, and ironically, I was on it with Sergio Aragonés, who, is just a huge influence, a lifelong influence on me. And I got to tell him, I got to sit at the table with him when we were waiting for our Eisner, and I told him, you're everything to me, man.
How did he take that?
I don't remember. He's just always, I think, normally kind to everyone's fawning praise over him.
Yeah.
He's used to it.
So Creature Tech is another one that I picked up there recently. And this had me in tears.
Yeah.
Right. Now, granted, I'm sort of a sap, so it doesn't take a lot. I mean, like I've told you before, that cardboard just wrecked me, like for an afternoon.
Oh, cardboard will get you every time. That
like,
one is
like Creature Tech. There were two specific moments that, like in Creature Tech, that just hit me, and one was, I'll go ahead and see if I can't find it quick. One was when he's having the vision, right?
Yeah,
and all of these people with the symbiotes are walking up the hill, and they find the one. So I can't.
That is the killer moment in the book to me.
Oh yeah.
That one is.
That one took this. It's right here.
Yeah.
Right. And what he
says
is, oh yeah. And he says, "You came here too," and
yeah.
And it did. It just hit me, right? And I had to take a moment.
That book is made for atheists. It's made for people to rip them out of their. I had to put that moment in because I had to rip you out of this world to explain to you what he experienced, or you wouldn't be convinced.
Yeah. And that was just great. The other one was right on this last page, right after the story wraps.
Yeah.
Right. Where you've gotten through that thing. And I put it down. It starts with, the evidence is the same, but I have changed.
Yeah.
And then it ends with that image. And I had to put the book down and collect myself.
Yeah.
That was that's some good stuff.
That is good. That's good. That's good writing right there. That's what that was just a blast of a book.
Yeah. So what was your idea? What got you thinking of Creature Tech? I mean, there's so much going on in it. It's got, the paranormal stuff. It's got, the big mysterious government agency. You've got the redemption arc of Professor Ong, or Dr.
Ong. That was a book where I wasn't sure what to do. I knew it would be a lot of work. So I just said, I'm going to put in everything I love. And so there were certain kind of themes and ideas going through my head that wouldn't get out. So a mile-long flying space eel was one of them. Demon-possessed cats. I was having some nightmares around that time about those. Intelligent design and people of faith. Science versus faith, because that was early in a lot of my reading then on the science versus faith stuff. I was from a small town and I made it big in Hollywood. So there's a lot of returning back to Turlock. My hometown is Denair, which is actually an outskirt of Turlock. It's even smaller than Turlock. But Turlock was the big city. And so there's a lot of the San Joaquin Valley stuff in it, and kind of all the smartest people I ever met, were in that town. Like I just met brilliant people that would wear overalls and were just like brilliant people. And I was really resentful that everyone thought of them as stupid. And then I'd written a lot of short stories about that giant praying mantis man, Blue. I'd written those in college back in like 1987 and 88. So I threw him. I knew I wanted a giant praying mantis man. Katie, the injured girl.
Right.
I knew a lot of Katies in my life. And it was kind of a tribute to...
Actually named Katie, or fit the type?
Fit the type. So it was the type. It was kind of the beautiful but injured. It was kind of the type, I guess. And I just, and I come up with the word creature tech long before that, probably 5 years before. And so the title came first, and then I just started kind of telling the story about these characters, and man, it just clicked and slammed together. Just clicked. It doesn't even make sense if you look at the parts and go, it's obviously not a carefully created book. It's carefully executed, but the creation of it really is what I just said. It's just like sticking stuff.
Yeah. I think even when you get to the, you know, the crazy, I can't remember the character's name, but the mad scientist,
Dr. Jameson.
Guy. Yeah. And like just that mix of, like, you know, of Dr. Jekyll with you know, something straight out of Hawthorne.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah, he's just a lunatic. He's an insane, weird, wonderful, he's unhinged, you know, he's just a weirdo, you know. I love him.
And one of the things that I really also loved about it is how, like, it just assumes the reality of space eels, right? Like, so, like, in the first, like,
well, you doubt it until you see photographic proof of it.
Well, and part of it is like when you're first reading it, and it's just sort of like the first several pages, even up until the time they're there, I'm sort of like, okay, what's the deal with these space eels? How can such a thing exist? Why is it? But then about the time the Shroud of Turin shows up, I suddenly was like, okay, I simply accept the existence of space eels.
And the Shroud of Turin's another, that's an item that I studied a lot, you know, a lot of the books, just to see if I thought it was legit or not. It was just interesting to me. So I did a lot of reading on it. So I just had all this material kind of sitting in front of me. Yeah. And it really is like a cut and paste, eclectic. I think Quentin Tarantino and probably the Coen brothers were having a really big effect on me in that they've always had a big effect on me cinematically, you know, that they do those kind of eclecticism also. Like Big Lebowski is kind of a car wreck of stuff, you know.
Right.
Oh, then he goes to a porn guy, and then he goes to, you know, then he's going to go bowling. He's a bowling guy. There's no reason for it. It's kind of like it's quirky.
Well, I think big part of the Big Lebowski is you have an intersection of geography and time, because it's 1991 and it's, you know, Southern California, so it's sort of like all the things that fit in there. Plus, it's obviously it takes a lot of notes from The Big Sleep, so there's a lot of those thematic elements that make their way over, like the porn guy, like the you know, the missing wife, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
it's a daughter or whatever in The Big Sleep. But yeah, so I think that's a fun little piece. But yeah, so and the other thing is really interesting. I think I've mentioned this to you before, but I first heard of Creature Tech. I made I met Kate Monin years and years ago at a comic book thing in here in Nebraska. She came to give a speech about comic books and the education.
Oh, cool.
And I ended up.
Oh yeah, you mean Katie Monin?
Yeah, Monin. Okay,
Dr. Monin.
Doctor, yes. And we ended up following each other on Facebook, and I saw that you guys knew each other.
And she's an old friend.
So she talked about Creature Tech, and so I was just like,
she has a giant Dr. Ong tattoo on her forearm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was my first, but I I'd never just like pulled the trigger and got it until about like 3 months ago.
Yeah. But one of my many lesbian fans, I'll note.
Yes. And
she's an academic. She's the one who actually introduced a lot of my books into literacy programs. So she developed curriculum for Ghostopolis and got it into schools. And she's a great longtime advocate of my work. I adore her. Yeah, she's a heck of a nice person too. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very disarming. Yeah. Spirited. She's a hardcore comic. Oh, and by the way, Creature Tech, I don't know if she ever told you this, but it's very close to her heart because she had a similar divide with some of her more traditional parents. Mm-hmm. And so she kind of saw herself a lot in Dr. Ong. Well, it just goes to show, like, these stories can go places, amazing places, and touch people in ways who I'll never meet, maybe.
one of the things that she talked about specifically was that conflict between like going back home and what does it mean to go out into the world and then still have a place where you came from, but like how does that fit in? I actually really relate to that personally, because like I'm from Scottsbluff, Nebraska. I'm not originally from there, but we moved there when I was like 10, and it just sort of like kind of shaped my view of the world. And then I went out, and I decided out was awful, so I came back.
Yeah, that was the thing is, that's the teen in all of us is I left home, went to college. I came back home and my hair was longer than yours. Mm-hmm. You know, I had a double pierced ear and I come back to Turlock and my dad's like, what happened to you? And you start to realize that you threw the baby out with the bathwater, that there's great things there, that if you become an arbitrary rebel and you're just rebelling for the sake of rebellion, that's what Creature Tech's about is what quirk do you hold on to because it's important? And you'll see in Creature Tech, there's a lot of weird stuff that is important to hold on to that maybe the locals need to warm up to. And then there's a lot of stuff that you realize you went out and accepted whole cloth that actually is more immoral than the stuff that you came from, that you thought you were going to correct.
Well, and also like the question of where does truth fit into all of that? Right. Yeah. Because, just because it's sometimes people are prone to like absorb new knowledge because it's new. And sometimes I don't think we question whether or not it's actually true in a lot of ways. And I see, some kids that, go off to college and it's like, well, this is my new identity. And my parents never asked these questions. I'm like, you really think your parents never struggled with, like what makes sexual morality a thing?
That's right. That's right.
I mean, yeah. I think we've all been through that a lot of ways, but it's one of those things that people come back to that on. But I loved the idea that debate between Ong and his father about where that truth lies and his just overt skepticism. Yeah. It also was really interesting reading it after getting to know you a little bit about how like rampant your own skepticism is.
Oh yeah,
you've still come down on the side of faith because like. Of all the things you can know, these are some things that seem inarguably true. And I'd love to argue with them. I've tried.
I never have a problem with debating atheists because I always know their arguments better than they do. I've read way more of their work than they have of mine, so of our side. So it's kind of mean to go into a debate with them. Not that I can convince anyone, because none of us can really. The whole point of Creature Tech is it's a matter of the heart and not the argument. That it's a choice to rebel or to reject something. But I never have. In fact, what people anger about me the most is my confidence. They hate, they resent, they demand that I equivocate and claim ignorance of things that I absolutely know. That's what drives them crazy. Like, how can you say that? I'm like, oh, it's easy because you're an idiot. Or how can you say that these things? Like, oh, let's just check out your evidence for what you know, and you just poke at it a little bit, and it's like it just falls apart so fast. So
that's one thing I've really noticed in getting into discussions, like because you kind of start fires there, Doug, on the internet, and occasionally I find myself in the middle of the conflagration, or I walk into it, and people are just like, he's so smug, and I said, he openly admits to being a piece of crap. How can you? I don't understand how that works.
And I learned all of this being a prick and being recalcitrant in what I believe. I learned it from all of you, from your culture, from your side. So all I'm doing is taking your methods, but applying my beliefs to your methods. And by you rejecting me, you reject your own lack of tact, your own prickness. And so if you're saying that I lose the argument because I'm a prick, then you lost an argument because you're a prick. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I think one of the biggest issue is, I think that you talk about that confidence and having gone through it and wore the battle badges of questioning your own, beliefs. I think people just don't do that. And that's, the whole, we've talked about the lure of postmodernism, where people don't even believe they can question the that there is truth, right? That whole question does it even exist? And I've always thought that it was really, not always, but nearly always thought that even that question is this funny one, because, you know, the statement of whether truth exists or not is a truth claim.
Right.
So if you say truth doesn't exist, well, then your statement has no meaning.
Yeah.
Well,
they'll say, I can't know, and you can't know either, is my favorite. I don't know if there's a God, and neither can you know. I go, wow, that's interesting. By what authority
can you
can you claim a universal truth of knowledge of what's unknowable? How do you know I didn't just, how do you know I don't know God personally as a friend?
You were going to say, Fly?
I was going to say, just in their even speaking about these things, they're presupposing certain things like a universal laws of logic that men like creatures can communicate in such a way to tell someone, oh, you can't know that truth exists, which relies upon foundational and fundamental truths about the way that we communicate and the way that the world is. If I say A is A and A is not B, you can understand what I'm saying. And there's no doubt in your mind about that. You can understand those basic laws of logic. And so the ridiculous part about postmodernism, of course, is that it's these people that are questioning presuppositions, but they're never questioning their own to the degree that they should, which is, are my presuppositions depending upon something outside of myself to determine these things? Instead, they look inward and they say, I am the determiner of truth, as opposed to looking to those objective truths that are out there.
And it's always good, if you're a doubter, it's always good to think about doubts. It's always good to question them, because I never want to go into a room having not thought about the weakness of my own position or my own beliefs. So I think we're far more introspective than someone who has the cultural cover of saying, you never have to question yourself. You never have to look inside. We've already decided hundreds of years ago that the faith is wrong, so don't even look. It's kind of what I get. Whereas I think most of us are raised in at least an atheistic culture, if not a postmodern one, that they're providing you with presuppositions so that you never have to debate that one true or other presuppositions.
We live in a time that's unprecedented in terms of how beliefs are derived almost entirely culturally, nothing through actual knowledge of what those beliefs are. So why is someone a liberal? Because the media has told them to be. The culture around them has told them to be. Why are they conservative? Because their culture has told them. Not because they necessarily believe those truths to be truths, because they researched and they looked into them, they looked at the facts, they looked at objective things. On both sides now, they're the atheism side and especially the evangelical church side. You have people that are culturally Christians that have no idea what they believe or why they should believe them. And so when they come up against someone who has even a semblance of intelligence that's on the other side, they're immediately destroyed because they don't even know what they believe or why they believed it in the first place.
Yeah. And if you want to see bias and presuppositionalism on display, just look at the election.
Oh, goodness.
No one knows the count. None of us literally have heard the count. It's not 100% of the votes are in. None of us know. And so my side, I'm on Trump's side. I so want, the investigation to come out one way. I'm looking for voter fraud, but I don't want to be caught hanging out way over my skis and be just completely biased, just being a blind guy. Because guess what I'm going to accuse the other side of, that. Right. So I don't want to be that. They can be that, and they may be that, but I see a whole lot of that on my side too. And that's what, it doesn't bother me when they do it because they're idiots. It bothers me when we do it. And I always ask myself, Doug, do you only think the election fraud happened because Trump's your guy? That's the most important question our side can ask.
Well, and I think it's been going on for 50 years, unabated and unchanged. So I have no problem believing that happened. I think.
Well, I know elector fraud happens. I'm saying, is it enough to tilt the election? is the question.
So anyway,
and we will follow the evidence wherever it leads.
Yeah, and I mean, let's face it, but and I think back to the subject about truth. I think it's one of those things too where, wait, I forgot what I was going to say.
I'm sorry.
I totally forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I remember what it was. We're talking about the idea of living in an atheist culture, in a postmodern culture.
Yeah.
And Andrew Clavin says that until fairly recently, you could almost make a good rational argument because we didn't know so much about the way the universe was put together.
Yeah.
So 100 years ago, 110 years ago, there's a good question about whether, it makes sense that, because they didn't understand the complexities of the universe and how precise everything had to be for it to fit. And even the question about one of my favorite questions is, even earlier today, somebody was accusing me of believing in fairy tales. And I said, oh, I'll bet you believe in plenty of fairy tales. And he said, oh, it doesn't make sense to believe in a God. And I said, why do you believe it makes sense to believe in truth at all?
Yeah.
You're making fact claims about something, and why does anything exist instead of nothing exist? So
right.
That's
or why do you believe in laws of logic? That's the old Bonson Van Tillian presupposition. Is are they just convention, or are they an absolute brute fact?
Yeah. So even appealing to reason to not believe in God is believing in something outside of reality, outside of
you can't ground your reason.
Yeah, you ground in reason in what? I mean, you buy it, but why?
Same way that Ayn Rand can't ground her objectivism. Her objectivism. Going like, because I never have to explain it. Okay.
That was the biggest hang up with me and I've only read the Fountainhead.
Yeah.
I found the Fountainhead so disingenuous.
Yeah.
Because first of all, it invents morality whole cloth and based around, on the idea of not taking anything from anyone, but,
no altruism.
No altruism. You still was taking things from people.
Altruism is evil.
So it was sort of like, it's all based upon just, your idea of what's convenient for you right now, Ein, because, however it is, Ein, I don't know.
I call her Anne. I don't care. It's Ayn Rand.
I don't have the faintest clue. It's like there's I for some reason I have it in my head that Neil Gaiman is Gaiman, and people make fun of me. No, it's Gaiman, and I'm like, I have no idea. It got stuck in my head at some point in the past, and that's just how I say it.
Neil Gaiman sounds like Neil Diamond. That ain't bad.
Maybe that's why my dad was a huge Neil Diamond
Reverend Blue Jeans. Yep.
Cracklin' Rosie. Anyway, I did want to bring up something from the chat from a while back ago, and I got to find it again because people are just popping off up here. This was Matt C. Acid. Ask Doug about Hickston Bragg 2021. I don't know what that is.
That's my only unfinished comic. I did 100 pages on it, and I can't draw well enough to finish it. So wow. I was in peak drawing in 2011. It's a great story. I got the script. The script's done. It's ready to go. Every time I try to draw it, it's just a disaster. So I don't want to ruin it. But and it's not going to happen in 2021 if I have Bigfoot Bill 3 to do. It's not going to. That's going to take a long time.
There was something.
I'm willing. I'm always willing. Just waiting. Right. It'll be a big letdown, Matt. Don't worry. By the time you read it, you'll be like, I waited how long for this?
Matt C needs to draw a Doug TenNapel script.
Yeah, there you go.
That would be awesome.
He's a great artist.
So, but yeah, he is. He is a great artist. I just got Kyrie 2 in the post this week and read it and loved it.
Cool.
Not to go off on too much of a tangent, but it's I think a great like middle chapter. I guess Matt said he's gotten some complaints that it's too slow, but I actually think it's perfect. Because it does move slow, but it's also people walking through a desert, so it really it feels like that trip to Mordor, right?
Yeah.
Where
Oh yeah, man. The Two Towers. Talk about a long slog.
Every step is a pregnant movement.
Yeah.
And you're just waiting for that shoe to drop.
Give the man some room.
I loved it. So, and especially because I have it on good authority, Volume 3 is supposed to just absolutely hit the fan. So, yeah.
Get in there, Matt.
Oh, man. Can't let us down, Matt. So, I had another Doug question in the back of my head, and I'm trying to remember what it was now. Fly Fox Pro, do you have any questions while I'm trying to remember what I was thinking?
Why did you draw the praying mantis on the toilet in Creature Tech?
Oh, because it was funny. Isn't he looking at a Playboy?
I don't think so. I don't know. I have that page. I own that page, so I could go and look at it.
Oh, really?
In person, right in my office here. I could go and look at it, but
I thought he was looking at a Playboy on the toilet.
I don't know.
It's something. Hang on. It's coming up here. Right over there.
We'll see. What's the deal with Chupacabra's family? They look kind of evil, man. I don't know if I trust them. I think he should leave that realm and go back to Earth.
It is, in fact, a girly magazine.
Yeah, he's looking at the centerfold. He's holding it the other way.
It just says girly. So,
yeah.
They've also got pink toilet paper, which I just noticed.
That's because Catherine colored the book. When a girl colored the book.
Yeah. So there you go, Catherine. If you ever watch this, we don't have pink toilet paper in America.
She put a feminine touch on the boys' bathroom. It's got lemon yellow tile and pink toilet paper.
I don't know what that has to do. I mean, what they'd have there in that crazy, foggy socialist island you live on. But here in America, our toilet paper is white.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're not biscuits or chips.
Carl Tunes, thanks for tuning in. He says poop mantis. So,
mantis on the toilet, 7 foot tall mantis on the toilet, only in Creature Tech in Image Comics right now.
And it's on a toilet in a trailer house.
Yeah, in a trailer park. See, there's the mantis on the back of his motorcycle.
So Zippy the Unicorn in the chat asks me, it's 2020, are lip rings still a thing? Asking for society. Obviously they are. And I'll have you know that my wife specifically requested the lip ring, so I don't care.
Gross. Get that thing off your lip. Put it on your eyebrow at least. Get it out of the way.
It's not
get it up there, man.
You get used to it, man.
All right.
So, yeah. So, although I don't, she also requests no mustache, and that doesn't happen all the time anyway. So
I'm not. We're twin no mustache. See that?
That's true.
I usually have a mustache, but I'm enjoying every once in a while I shave it off, just going, I'm tired of having like meat on my lip. It just feels like there's a giant steak on there.
So here is a question though. Speaking of Zippy, I have heard rumors that Zippy might show up in Bigfoot Build 3. Is that true or is that false?
It's confirmed.
Ooh. I'm excited for that.
In fact, I made sure to put him in the 24-page preview that comes with Earthworm Jim too. Yeah, there's a Zippy moment in there.
Here is Tim Lim is in the chat, and I don't know
our man Tim Lim.
Yes, well, I think it's Tim. I know Mark also has the keys to this account, so I don't know if it is Mark, but I believe it's Tim because he's specifically saying Tim-like things. But I don't know what
it could be. It could be a fake, though.
It's true. That's true. But what is a KateCon? I don't even know what that means. It looks like it might be a Greek word.
It is Greek, from the word to withhold. I don't know what that means. Is he withholding something? Tim,
tell us a little more.
You have one of the few comic book guys that knows a little bit of Greek and Hebrew.
Yeah.
About that.
So Zippy says booyah. I'm assuming over being in the
booyah.
Yeah. That guy cracks me up.
Yeah, he's a lunatic.
Oh man. I desperately want to know what the real life story is of
I get to talk to real Zippy all the time.
Yeah.
On the phone. But He's a certified public accountant. That's all I'll say. No.
he's got.
I actually don't know. I know about him in real life, the happier I am.
He's got to the idea of him being keeping his identity secret as an accountant is hilarious to me.
Oh yeah, we have to keep his real identity a secret. That's what keeps Zippy alive. You can't. Zippy will die as soon as we know who the real guy is. You don't want that.
That's true. That is
true. Got to keep Zippy alive.
It's sort of like the less you know about who's running Kermit the Frog, the better you are.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So the Catchcron from Thessalonians, the one thing standing between man and the Antichrist.
Oh, okay. The guy who holds back the Antichrist so that if he's unleashed. No, I can't believe that.
No. Oh, I don't. I have no idea. I tend to follow along with what oh my goodness, I can't remember his name right now.
Antichrist.
Hal Lindsey.
Hal Lindsey.
No,
no one follows Hal Lindsey.
A different fellow. Oh, good gravy. I'm going to move on, so I can't remember.
I'm a millennial Reformed Protestant, so my confession says that the Pope is the Antichrist. So sorry, Tim, I'm not on your side on this.
Sorry, Tim. He's Reformed. He's going to start doing all the. He's going to start quoting Luther.
Well,
they weren't kind to popes. They weren't kind.
Yeah, I think there are popes. There are popes who were Antichrist, but the Antichrist is a whole different story. But Chuck Missler.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
He's a lunatic. That's who Mike Miller is into. Also,
Well, I think maybe we all are lunatics. But one of the things that Missler said is that if there is an Antichrist, there would have to be lots in the wings, since nobody knows. Like, since Jesus' return is secret.
Yeah.
There would have to be lots just waiting.
Unknown.
So if as an agent of the devil, there would have to be lots that are just lined up. So we've probably seen lots without even knowing it.
Zippy the Unicorn says Jim Henson is in hell.
It might be. Who knows? I don't
want to make that call just yet, Zippy, but my sense is maybe.
Yeah. It's possible. It's possible, but who knows? I'm not in charge of that. That's between him and his eternal judge and creator.
I used to have a deal at Henson. I would pitch to his daughter Lisa Henson all the time. Jim Henson's a big influence on me as a puppeteer myself.
Yeah.
Love.
I think he is on all of us in a lot of ways. There was a lot of creativity.
And he did clay animation, stop motion for his master's thesis. I mean, he did a lot of film work and stuff. He was just a brilliant creator. Matt C. on Henson, not Trump.
Yeah.
Too soon, Zippy, says Matt C.
Yeah. Also, I'd like to. What was I going to say? It doesn't matter. It has no bearing, I'm sure.
Yeah. These guys are talking very non.
Yeah, something I was going to say about Henson, and I can't. Oh, I remember what it was. Henson was brilliant, but if there's one thing he couldn't do, was nail an ending.
Oh yeah,
man.
Yeah, they weren't great writers. None of those guys were great story crafters. They were great at character work, which is
and they're a lot of their performances, puppetry, top notch. Putting pieces together. But like the weakest part of the Muppet movie was the end, and it's like you get to a point where it's just a mess. And so what do? They pull out those heartstrings and just pluck them and say, Hollywood is magic. And everyone feels really wonderful about it. And you go home and you're just like, man, I'm so glad I knocked my mic off. I'm so glad I watched that film.
Yeah.
And then that's it. But I
felt the same way about Dark Crystal. At the end, you're just like, what?
Yeah. Or Labyrinth.
Or Labyrinth, same thing. Yeah. Great ideas and great expression. And then, but never, not too careful on the plot.
I tell you what,
it's an afterthought.
Well, yeah, and Labyrinth was just I don't know. I think Labyrinth is a mess.
Yeah.
It really is. It's like 2/3 of the story, like at the beginning of the third act, the entire thing shifts, and suddenly it's like just like a whole thing, and like the motivations of the Goblin King are different, and 16-year-old Jennifer Connelly is suddenly being courted by Dave Bowie. Like, that comes completely out of left field.
She was born hot. Poor kid.
Well, what about Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas? That story's pretty good.
Oh man, that one seared me as a kid too. I watched that one. That had those human puppets, those big giant farmer guys, right? Mm. Doesn't it have like the moose and the tuba? Isn't it like a tuba or something?
Nope.
No, I haven't seen that in forever.
Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas. That's a great obscure Henson.
Yes, Nick, Labyrinth with David Bowie in the most frightening costume he's ever worn.
It's terrible design. His whole costume is terrible. It's just terrible.
The concept of the Goblin King, I love.
Yeah.
The idea that he has to find an heir because his magic is fading and he's going to die. Great. But man, from that beginning of the third act on, it's just
when he's singing. It's like, why are you singing?
Oh, and this moment, worst thing on film ever.
You remind me of the Babe.
16 is old age in other countries, Zippy says. That's that's true, but this is America.
True. Times were different then.
Let's face it. This is America. Other thing from the chat. Oh, Niobe Comics. Larry says, so I remember Doug was kind enough to come on an off-air hangout and give us all words of inspiration. Not sure if he remembers, but that was pretty damn cool. So, thanks. Yeah. Thanks for
tuning in. I do that a lot with people. I just had a call with Bric-a-Brac.
Ryan Hack.
Yeah, I can't remember their names very well, Ryan Hack, but I talk to people offline all the time.
Name rhymes with his book title?
Bric-a-Brac, Ryan Hack.
Huh. I might have to try that. What rhymes with East? Moving on. So yeah. That was Henson. We have 19 people watching, and I am blocked up with words in my head. I had all these ideas. This is the problem, people. I
write them down.
I do these shows. I get like rough outlines of stuff, and I never ever write anything.
Well, you can't interview and read the chat. That's the problem with the chat. Is I always want to read the chat.
Yeah.
And if you stay focused on the chat, you'll lose your interview. If you stick to the interview, then you're ignoring the chat. So it's like it's this weird, two completely different disciplines going on. I do it on my show all the time too. Like as soon as I start reading the chat, like show, I turn off the show in my head, Well,
see, and the thing that is great is sometimes the chat will come up with really great questions and kind of engage in that kind of thing, and it's wonderful. But that's the kind of trade on that. So,
hey, look at that! We got an Audio Mullet fan here. For those of you who haven't listened to Audio Mullet and want to be truly destroyed, look up Audio Mullet on iTunes. And in fact, we just got a distribution deal, a little deal, something.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Asked to go on a platform, so something could happen. We're looking into it.
This interview will count towards your purgatory.
Yeah, you're working it off, baby. You got all these Catholics in here. What happened?
Well, I just I run a Catholic-friendly show. In fact, I can't remember who it was, but one of my Reformed Protestant friends was just like, "We'll get you out of that." And I'm just like, I'm not Catholic.
No, don't worry, man.
That was me.
Was it you? And I'm like, I'm not really Reformed either, but I'm not Catholic.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm a mutt.
Yeah. I don't know. The Calvary Chapel is probably the closest to anything that.
Yeah. See, I was a Calvary Chapel guy, so we're probably both come from the same evangelical muttness.
Yeah.
When I was in San Diego, I went to Calvary Chapel Horizon Christian Fellowship.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot in
see, I knew when you quoted Chuck Missler. Man, I would do whole Bible studies back in like 1989 or 90. I think I taught a class in Romans at Calvary Chapel and I used Chuck Missler, some of his writing back then. This is way back in the day.
So some big jerk said, I'm the wacky Pentecostal here to balance out all the Catholics in the chat.
Yeah.
Oh, Doug Ernst just shows up.
Oh, no. See? It's the Reformation.
I tell you what, you start the show with Black Cherry and they just appear.
Where's my hammer and nail? I got to find that Wittenberg door and my thesis ready.
The great thing is we just had, of course, Reformation Day, like less than a week ago, with the memorial of hammering those up there.
I have Deformation Day.
Deformation Day. Well, yeah, I can't help the way I was born, so I'm not going to celebrate it.
That's right. I have no.
I think that the Orthodox Church has a lot of wisdom that's tucked into it. I just wish it wasn't tied up with so much stuff that I think that misses the point of the Old Testament, frankly. But
I had a big talk with a bunch of Orthodox guys this summer. I met with a bunch of them, had pipes with them. My buddy Reagan Lodge is an Orthodox guy. Terry Mattingly is Orthodox. I know a ton of great Orthodox out here in Franklin. There's a huge Orthodox group. I lecture them, when we have group meetings of guys, great guys. But man, the theology, John Mark Reynolds, another big thinker who's really big in my mind. I read a lot of him back on Creature Tag. Huge Orthodox guy. I'm just not on board with the theology. Well, I love the people.
One of the things that I really have come to think on speaking of theology, to scare all the comic readers out of the chat and just talk about theology for 20
minutes. I know they're going, I didn't show up for that.
They're fine. I don't care if here's the thing. Okay, guys that are watching, I love that you watch, but I also kind of don't care.
Good.
So,
you didn't even care that I'm here. You should.
Yeah. So that's true. I mean, I like you being here, Doug, but I do the show if you decided never to come on again.
Yeah, you don't have to reorient yourself because I'm here. Come on.
Anyway, my point though is that the one thing I've really come to realize in the last several years is that there are just so many things in the church that are non-salvific that we've gone to war over, right? Is that we kind of lose on the sides of I think that there are good arguments for holding X truth and Y and or the X idea about the truth and Y idea about the truth, but we are so fallible that leaning on anything outside of Christ and Him crucified and deciding to get into fist fights about it, that's stupid. You look at so much of what happened in the Reformation with the Huguenots and the Catholics in England and just
they killed each other. But I don't mind the division. I like when people are divided over things that they truly believe, because in a way that gets assaulted by postmodernism of saying nothing is worth dividing over. Well, maybe the truth is. Mm-hmm. So that's why I kind of like different denominations. It's like, oh, you need to go over there. I'll stay over here. And instead of forcing everyone under one denomination, we're united by Christ, and that's the only thing I'll unite with anyone on. So even in my own church.
Well, and I think that when it comes down to it, really, I mean, that's one of the things I love about America. People say, oh, Americans are so divided about everything. And I'm like, good. Have you looked at the plan? That was always part of the plan, was that out of many come one. You're
supposed to be able to be a lunatic and still participate in culture and not be rejected because you're. Oh, by the way, one of my good friends in Glendale was Scientologist, and the old lady in Black Cherry is based on her mother. She would tell me all these stories about her mother, and I based that character on totally from a real life person. Washed up, drunk lady walking around in her nightie. It was fantastic.
So Nick Mueller says it's time for another crusade. I'm not sure I agree with that.
Here we go, right here on that show, we're going to do a crusade.
Real. Zippy the Unicorn said just war theory is real. I don't know how many people disagree with that. So this is the big one here for me. Fist fights are fine as long as you can shake hands after.
Yeah.
Coming from a Welsh-Irish background, I 100% agree with the statement.
Yeah. You don't want to wear a lip ring in a fist fight, though, buddy.
That's true. That's where you got it. It's all about.
I'm just saying, if you get into a lot of fights, you want to get that metal out of your mouth there.
Well, fortunately, I'm old enough that hasn't happened in a long time. But
yeah, I don't see it.
If you don't occasionally punch your brother, then I don't think you're doing a good job being family. But that's a whole different thing. But yeah, So I don't know. I think that's when it comes to we do, I think, need to focus on what unites us, but I don't think that means that we have to give up what divides us either.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the powers of story, is that story does bring us around. So
yeah, we're united a lot by culture. I mean, look, what denomination you have to be to enjoy The Mandalorian? It's like lots of people, believers, non-believers. So we're united a lot by a lot of art culture. And then there's always some guy trying to divide everyone by just sticking an absolute in there that, you know, a whole lot of people aren't going to go for. And that's tough. It's okay. I mean, you're allowed to. Art forms are supposed to carry potent ideas, but
right.
You know, don't ask me to like your movie. Which
is an interesting point, because like we're talking about works that you've done that have explicit theology in them.
Yeah.
They're explicitly religious. And you mentioned earlier that you know, you have lesbian fans of it. These are people who would disagree with you fundamentally about the truths of the universe, which you think are the absolutes, and yet they can enjoy your work because it's well done.
Yeah.
The problem, I don't think, isn't necessarily politics or themes that you don't agree with. It's, is it well done? There are plenty of works that I enjoy that absolutely the author would fundamentally disagree with me on just about everything important in my life. And yet they are a good artist, and so it works. The problem isn't the politics. It's whether or not Tim Lim can make those politics fun and enjoyable to read, or Doug Schnabel can make those things fun and enjoyable to read. And that's the big miss that this whole, you know, few-year experiment that we've got going on here, that a lot of these people have, is they think, oh, well, I just need to neuter my work of the politics. And it's like, no, everything comes down to some sort of offensive truth, or else like, what's the point of your story?
And I love being made fun of by South Park, because I feel like they're always the humor's first. If I felt like they thought the humor was second and the point was first, you'd feel them just preaching all the time, and they'd go kind of halfway with the jokes, you know, and it just would fail and really make me suspect of them. There's people I trust who are always going to entertain first.
And that's kind of the thing I think is the real issue. It's not that it's politics, it's not that it's religion, it's not that there's cultural values in it. It's that it's a lot of this you know, the woke media stuff. It's dishonest, right?
Yeah.
You like, you know, going back to Gaiman's work, whatever. You look at the Doll's House story, with the whole thing with the cuckoo, and you've got those characters like Foxglove and I can't remember. They're two lesbians, right? When I first read that, I was I don't want to say more conservative, but I was sheltered as a child enough that wasn't the thing I came up with. So when I was reading Sandman as a young man, like the whole idea of homosexuality was very jarring to me, right? But even though that's a major theme, the relationship between those lesbians in the story is a huge theme, it didn't take me out of the story because the craft was well done, right?
Yeah.
And their emotions were genuine, and I'm not going to argue with that, Nick, but that's not the point. Because
most people, when they put gays in something, it's pure advocacy.
Yeah,
and we're just going to show you that they suddenly don't act like any human being you've ever met, you know, and you just go, oh, I see.
And when you look at like the way Iceman was written over at Marvel, it was this situation where the whole thing was a propaganda piece instead of being about, you know, real characters that happen to be, you know, gay or what. And that's, I think, what people like push against is the idea that the politics is more important than the story, or that the story is not being told well, despite the fact that it has political themes.
Right.
Right.
You also don't have the freedom. Culture doesn't give you the freedom to ever tell a story where the gay person is wrong, or now the black person is evil, or the person in the wheelchair is whatever, because everything has to be advocacy, right? Whereas when I put a married couple in my stories, it's not like they're incapable of being terrible people. Yep. I have the liberty. This is kind of where a lot of this identity politics fails, is those of us who don't live by identity politics have the freedom actually to just kind of follow the story where it needs to go, instead of, I'm never terrified that I'm going to infuriate my people, conservatives or Christians or whatever. It's like sometimes a character is just going to act a certain way, and you got to deal with it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a legitimate thing. I do think Tim's points out that there's subversion, not inherently bad, but it's there. The Trojan horse view, and I think that is a true thing.
The idea all stories, good stories, are subversive. So, and I'm fine with that. If you bury your lead well enough, you won't see it.
But that's one of those things too, where like not every story has to be the full and you don't want every story to be the full explication of a moral philosophy, right?
Yeah.
And you can have conversations about the way that characters react or the morality of the actions without taking away from the story itself.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that I know in my work, especially with the characters that I'm writing right now, I would homosexuality isn't going to be something I'm going to touch at all, because not only because of my moral view, but because I think it would be a disservice to the characters and the way they have, right? Same reason people complain that there aren't enough women in, and this is actually an essay you wrote that I read several years ago. People complain there aren't enough women in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
and you pointed out that the elves take that role of the feminine and play that out in the same way, so that even though you're dealing with men in a war environment, you still have those sorts of different energies that work through the story.
Well, not only that, but there are think about the context, like you're saying, in a medieval world like that. Would they have a primary role in this story? Probably not. But Tolkien does give female characters primary roles. You have characters that are doing huge things and being involved in the conflict. So that's whoever said that is an idiot.
But not in the main 13 is what I'm saying. These are where the feminists were angry that the main fellowship did not, because Aragorn's chick, Liv Tyler, what's her name, Arwen wasn't part of the original fellowship, and they really tried to put her in there a lot more in Peter Jackson's work, which I'm fine with. Again, he had a light touch. You have to do your job. The other thing is, I'm just a rebel. I hate culture. I really resent when a crowd tells me I have to do something. So I'll never do what all the popular people are doing. I just feel like I don't need to come in and tell a story that just underlines what everyone else already thinks. That's not the job of an artist, and it's not the job of a storyteller. So you just won't, in general, see me write stories about dads are dumb, lesbian couples are great, black people are always the smartest person in the room. They can never have faults, which is kind of what I feel like Hollywood does. I'll never do, if you notice reading all of that Black Cherry, which is steeped in the Catholic Church, I would never do a child molester priest joke. Those are just being lazy. And I feel like if someone read that, they'd say, this guy's just following culture. I never want you to read my story and say I'm just following culture. I'll never follow culture. And that's a lot of why I also tend to defend rednecks and defend evangelicals in my works, because I just go, it's just so, I'm showing culture. There's something there that you're improperly rejecting. You're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Let me show you some of the baby that you're throwing out.
And I think there's a drat. My brain is not very keen tonight. I keep misplacing ideas and thoughts. So, but I think the one of the ideas too about the idea of normative concepts. I know that looking at Tim's work on Common America, one of the things that's a real theme in there is that it's okay to be feminine. We have so much of modern culture that is trying to say it's okay to be deviant. And yes, Zippy, we all know Tolkien was a devout Catholic. That's not news. But yeah.
Yeah, Zippy. Thank you. I didn't know that.
I had no idea.
Zippy's trying. That's their only guy.
What do you think you're gonna? What next will we find out?
Wait, here comes Chesterton. Chesterton was
C.S. Lewis a member of the Church of England? I would never have guessed. Matt C says Latin writer bust. Well, if I spoke Latin, that would mean something, but I don't. So people
spoke Latin, you could read Harry Potter better.
There you go. that people forget a lot of the Latin right people forget that it was the Latin right because that was the lingua franca, and it's not anymore. So, but yeah, but I think the idea of back to what I was saying about Tim's work, the idea that of defending that the normal is normal and that's okay, and I think that's a real important thing too, because I think those are the stories. The reason that the normative stories have been normative is not just because there's some sort of nefarious society that pushes us toward those things. It's because they ring true to our lives.
Plus, she has huge knockers.
Well, yes.
Tim, I just want to know, how much bigger can they get on the next cover?
Well, it all depends on who he gets to do them, I suppose.
It's my challenge. My challenge is how much bigger.
When I buy a Common America book, I look at the two covers and I say, which one of these do I think my wife will hate less?
Yeah, you found the one with the smaller boobs.
Yep.
Well, the issue isn't just the size of them; it's the fact that because of the costume design, the bigger they are, the more they stick out from everything.
Yeah, they're huge. Obvious implants, because that girl doesn't have an ounce of fat on her.
Yeah, that's true.
Those are huge implants. And that is what's great about America. Very much America. It's a very capitalist, very free market. Very elective surgery.
So did you see Tim's question that he asked earlier there, Reese?
Let's see here.
A question.
See Tim's question. I don't think I did. Oh, question for all of you. How do you deprogram people from wanting? Personally, I see diversity quotas and representation in entertainment. Oh, from wanting diversity quotas and representation. I honestly think that has more to do with like integration that you don't notice, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It's sort of like okay,
natural diversity through
very few people that I think dug this series, which is why it didn't last. But DC Comics a couple years ago had a series called Silencer, and the lead character was a woman of color and never mentioned it. Right? She had she was in a biracial relationship. They had a mixed race child. Nobody talked about it. It wasn't a thing. The more that we don't talk about it, the more people won't notice it or care. Right? And it's not to deperson or to unplace that. It's just that, like, we're all people, right? America cares so much about race because we keep making it an issue. If we just like opened it up and accepted things, it's like miscegenation is a good thing. We don't have to care. I mean, and I'm obviously proud of my culture, but I also know that it doesn't matter to anyone but me, right? So if we just, that unite as human beings first and foremost, and I don't think it'll be so much of that's my take on it anyway.
I always liked Spike Lee's Jungle Fever because it really goes into a black man pursuing a white woman and asks tough questions. It doesn't have any answers, but it's just he went places with his honest. Same with Do the Right Thing. He'd go into some pretty more interesting places and dangerous places than just the obvious safe ones. And I always respected that as a writer. So I just think if you were allowed to be a little more honest with treating human beings like they're human beings, instead of they can only have one kind of thought. For instance, what if you wrote a black character and he was a total racist against whites? Say, let's talk about that. They wouldn't even let you talk about it.
Yeah. Or write a black character who's an absolute redneck.
Yeah. Right. Or my gay Christian friend who is just dying to not be gay anymore. And he hasn't slipped up, in 30 years or whatever. And was attracted to underage boys. Like, tell that story. They won't let you tell that story.
Yeah.
So I'm only saying they'll only allow you to tell certain stories within the identity. And that's what bugs me as an artist is like, you should feel free to follow the truth wherever you want it to go. And we're all being programmed a certain way to only think about things a certain way. And it constricts the arts. And I'm for freedom in arts. I'm for freedom of speech. So I reject it. But I'm with Matt too. Like, I wouldn't even touch these subjects because the culture demands I bring up a Any one of those slivers of the pie, I won't do it. I'm just here to tell my own stories, and that's why I'm here. And I have really no interest in most of the stuff that culture pushes. I wouldn't even.
And really,
wouldn't even be tempted to even touch it.
In the last couple of projects you've worked on, you've got Bigfoots and you've got anthropomorphic worm creatures with techno suits. So race is completely off the table.
Well, I want my story to be true 100 years from now, and I don't think we'll be talking about race 100 years from now.
I don't think so either.
I don't think we'll be talking about, or I should say, the conversation will completely change to something else. And here we'll be sitting here mired in this cultural moment, and none of our stories will apply anymore in the future. They won't be true. So I want to find something that's true beyond just this culture.
It's like go back to the early part of the 20th century, and you can read a lot of crappy modernism books, but who's still being read? Lewis and Tolkien. So the things that are true, they stand the test of time. And there's a lot of books they're more celebrated and may have been more popular at the time in terms of what the culture was saying. But definitely those are the things that stand.
The things Mark Twain talks about in Huckleberry Finn is still so interesting today. It's so character driven, and it's it's beautiful. It's a beautiful, heart-wrenching look at racism.
And it's so human and real. Yeah. And that's one of the books that, like, for me, it's heart-wrenching. It's absolutely heart-wrenching to see people that are like, oh, we can't have it because it uses the N-word in it. And I'm like, dude, teleport yourself back to 1840. Right. And realize that, like, when Twain released this in the 60s, like, this was a violently anti-establishment book that the message is stop treating humans like they're not humans.
Yeah. And it may come out technically on the woke side.
Yeah.
I don't care. He's not being woke about the way that he tells his story.
If you want to talk about the history of political parties, like, that was that's why we went to war. That's how Abraham got elected, was because we needed to rectify some wrongs.
Yeah, Mark Twain was telling a good Republican story, even though he thought he was a Southern Democrat.
That's how we lost 600,000 American lives to make up for 1820.
We shot each other in the face a lot back then.
Oh my God, we had it coming.
So I always remember that the literary establishment hated Robert Louis Stevenson, right? Like Virginia Woolf, like, criticized him and said, "Oh, he's so crappy, and like nobody's gonna like this, and oh, he just writes these pulpy adventure stories." But who's still being read? Not Virginia Woolf.
Right.
That's true. That's true. Well, I think it's because part of those is you see works that speak to something beyond our experience, right? Where it's within our experience, but it's also beyond there. And they created something that's timeless, even though it's very rooted in a memory or an image of a time. It's still a timeless story.
Yeah, there's still these stories all exist very much in our timeline. I just don't want the subject matter to be, because look, if you wrote stuff to what was happening 10 years ago, even, it would barely even apply today. If you were all mired in the politics of Bush and Pelosi and Schumer and all that, and Clinton back in the aught fives, it'd be so pretty boring.
Well, it's like all these musical artists that put all these anti-Bush music out.
Yeah.
And now who cares? Like now they all love George Bush because he wouldn't come out and endorse Trump. So like, wait a second. I thought he was the devil. You made a song literally calling him the devil, and now he's your pal. So, because they don't believe in truth. They have no universals, and so they're willing to just change their views on anything.
That's one thing totally off topic of anything we've discussed tonight, but one of the things that gets me the most crazy is how many people like hate Trump when 6 years ago like rappers were making songs about Donald Trump.
Yeah,
but then suddenly 5 years ago he's persona non grata.
History will smile on Trump. I think they'll look back and say he really was doing something unique. He really came from another place and shook things up and did great things. His legacy is going to be great.
one of the things I found so funny during debates is people ask, Biden, what are you going to do? And he says, I'm going to do about the COVID. And he goes A, B, C, D, and E. And I'm like, that's Trump in January, February, March, and April. Was nobody else paying attention?
Right.
Yep. I mean, the guy's got his faults. He's also a jackass, but he's, Justin asks why Trump likes rotten pumpkins so much. I mean, why Doug asks rotten.
Oh, you have to listen to Audio Mullet to find out why. That's an Audio Mullet joke.
Well, I caught some of that on Twitter today too, but
it's what I accuse libertarians of.
Yeah, it's a little terrifying, frankly.
Yeah. Yep.
So, well, guys, I just noticed the clock is 9:08. So, this has been a really fun conversation, but it's usually time to wrap up.
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock for me. It's my bedtime.
Yeah. Well, because you get up at the crack of dawn, the very
5.
Yeah, that's wild. So, I am a night owl myself, so I don't.
We'll fix that.
Yeah,
I'll be lettering Earthworm Jim 2. I'd love to have you guys back it. If you haven't backed it yet, get into Earthworm Jim 2.
Oh man, I'm excited for that one. And when are you looking to get that finished up by?
That delivers in February.
Very cool.
It's going to be a rough. The rest of this month in December is going to be a rough work time for me. I'll be hitting it hard. So, but fun, good work.
Very excited.
Put your head down, sit at the table, and go.
Yeah, that's what you got to do, man. So, also, since it's my show, I'm going to end it with my own pitch. If you guys want some free e-comics, check out idealcomics.net and the link on our webcomic. Or you can throw us a little extra cash and get some digital comics that we have available there. And that's the show. Until next week. And I have totally forgotten the names of next week's guests. So you'll just have to follow me on Twitter at MD Reese to see who they are, because I'll make that announcement tonight or tomorrow morning.
Bill Cosby and David Carradine.
Oh, is he still hanging around?
Oh, my God.
Oh, that's good. What a great ad.
Your timing was ridiculous for that joke, but that was on point. That was disgusting and awful. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I wasn't even expecting it. It was like I was running down the road and got clotheslined.
Oh, my God. So we'll catch you guys all later. Thanks for hanging out. Back Earthworm Jim. Buy my comics. Good night.